Hello, and welcome to On the Way. So, I just wanted to share a few stories that happened right before I took off traveling the country to spread God's love. And at this time, it's between the months of January and March when I'm getting used to my home. I've been doing the swabbing of the inmates for COVID, and now I'm getting ready to go to Arizona to get my furniture. So my daughter's living with me, and my daughter is a person who, even though I planted a seed when she was a child, and with all my children, she has her own walk. And when she was young, she could feel people. I don't know if they're spirits. I don't know if it's essences of, people have passed on. I don't know what exactly, but she would tell me things that she wouldn't have known because she was just little. But as she got older, she had a very scientific mind and denied that there was anything out there. That this is what we see, this is what we are, and this is the end of it. So I just always hoped and prayed that she would find her own spiritual path. But as time went on, living in my house together, she kept feeling what she said was a spirit that wasn't so nice. Now, I've never felt things like that, so I never felt it. I never felt that spirit in my home. But there were occasions when my little dog Bonnie, sitting on my bed, would just start shivering and looking down the hallway from my bed. And she was scared. And she is a scaredy cat. When it thunders and lightnings, she will shiver all night long. But there would be no reason for her to be shivering on these nights. And I didn't understand why she was feeling the way she was. I thought, is there a change in barometric pressure that I'm not aware of? And maybe the weather's coming. It would be a perfectly beautiful sunny day, and she would have these shakes. But I never really paid much attention to them until my daughter started voicing more and more concern about this spirit that was in the house. So anyway, she felt like it was getting more and more aggressive, but I was getting ready to leave. There wasn't much I could do about it because I don't quite understand what you're supposed to do about it. And I had to leave. I had to go to Arizona to get my furniture. I was going to be gone for a month, and she was going to have a girlfriend come and stay like a week with her, which was great. So when I was gone, and as I was wrapping up my trip, she called me and she said, "Mom, I'm going to have to move out. This is so bad here that I was afraid to come into the house. I was literally afraid to walk in the house." And that's when she shared with me that when her girlfriend was there, her girlfriend felt this presence that was not so nice. So I said, all I can do is pray from here. I don't even know what I can do. So I get home. I said a prayer that night, and the next day she said it did feel a little better. And what I prayed for was, just that I asked my Heavenly Father, I said, can you please just bring her some peace until I can get home and try and figure this out? So I get home and she tells me some more of what's going on, and I have one night because I've got to be in Michigan the next day. We've got a memorial for my mother, and I have her ashes, so I'm supposed to bring the ashes up. So I had to leave the very next day, bright and early. Anyway, so that night, as I was sitting on top of my bed doing something on my computer or something, and Bonnie was on my lap, and Bonnie started shaking and shivering. And then I knew whatever that was now in our presence, because it was a beautiful day outside. It was evening. It was dark outside, but there was no weather going on, and Bonnie was shivering. So I started to talk to whatever this was. I didn't know what it was, but I started to talk to it. Because I've heard of people say, sometimes they don't know that they passed away. And so I don't even remember what I said, but I just said, you have to leave my daughter alone. I don't know who you are, but you can stay here, but you've got to be nice to my daughter. And then for some reason, I just said something like, I think there are people waiting for you on the other side. I don't know that you know that you've passed away. I don't know that you know that you're dead. And as sure as I'm sitting here, I heard a very audible moan. And I wouldn't have guessed it to be that. I would have probably explained it away with a sound outside, had Bonnie not yelped and ran under the bed. So I knew that whatever this was in my room. And I'm not going to lie, I was a bit frightened. I didn't know what to do about it, but I just sat there stunned, trying to wrap my mind around what was going on. And all of a sudden, I felt almost a light touch on my feet because I was on top of the bed. So something just lightly touched my feet and started to move up my legs. And I just said, Heavenly Father, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm frightened and I need your help. I need this spirit, entity, whatever this is, I need it out of my home. It doesn't belong here. It doesn't belong with us. And with all my being, I was just in a deep prayer. And I don't remember all what I said, but I was scared. And just like that, as I was finishing up praying, it was gone. I didn't feel it anymore. I didn't feel a poof. I didn't feel anything magical. I just didn't feel that presence that I was feeling. It was gone. And it never went higher than my knees. It was just like, it just started moving up. But it never went higher than that. It was gone. And I don't know, I can't explain what that was. I can't tell you what it was. I have no idea. I just know that the prayer worked, that God took care of whatever that was. Bonnie came out from underneath the bed, which she never does. I usually have to coax her. And she laid beside me. She kept watching down that hallway, that's for sure. But she didn't shake anymore the rest of the night. So just real quickly, I want to add that once I got to Michigan, my daughter called and said, Mom, I didn't want to believe that what you told me you did worked. I didn't want to believe that things that I maybe had thought up in my mind were real and that something could take them away like a God. She said, but it's gone. It's not here. I feel very safe. I don't know what you did, but now I've got to figure out what it is that I believe. And so a really good thing that came from that was my daughter's own spiritual journey. But anyway, I'm not going to debate anybody about what happened or what it was. All I know is what I just told you, and that is how it happened. So let's fast forward a little bit. I'm living in my home and figuring out what job I want to work because I'm being offered nursing jobs. But something inside of me kept saying, no, that's not what you're going to do right now. But I didn't know what, because I thought I was settled at this point. But I was offered a job to hostess in a really nice upscale restaurant that I was really excited to do. And I thought if I did that with an interpreting job from home, which I was qualified for and got hired to do, I would be fine financially. So I was excited to do both. But I didn't know if I was making the right decision. And one day when I was at a lumber store getting some things for the house, I was in prayer in my car about it. Just, Father, I'm being offered these great jobs for nursing. I miss nursing. I can make a lot more money. But, the world was not in such a great place when it came to medical care or as far as the medical industry. And so I didn't know. I was back and forth. And so I go into this store and I meet this lovely man who just starts talking to me. He starts telling me his whole life story, very interesting life he had, and sharing about his wife and everything. And it was just really a lovely man and just a lovely conversation. And about 40 minutes into this, this man's a talker, so it was great. I love that. But 40 minutes into the conversation, he all of a sudden just stops and he looks at me. And he goes, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, that's funny you should ask. And so I explained to him that I was in a quandary. And he goes, no, take the hostess job. Don't go back into nursing. And so I got real emotional because I knew that that was God's way of saying, forget about the nursing for now. So I just kept plugging along. I thanked him and I never saw him again, which saddened me because I really enjoyed his company. He was a very nice older man. But anyway, I say older, like he's probably not that much older than me. But anyway, and so then I'm plugging along, and in the fall, it's fall now, and I am working in my yard. and I am in prayer like I always am. To me, that's just talking to God. I'm just talking to God. And I heard a distinctive, it's about time to sell the house. And I was shocked. I had just moved in that January. The renovations I had hired people to do were all complete. I loved my house. And I was looking forward to the 2 jobs I was going to be starting. But I heard it again. I need you to sell the house. I need you to pack up your stuff. And I need you to remind people that I'm here. And I just thought, okay, I do as I'm told. And so I knew this was going to be my life. I knew that I was going to have to do this. I kept hearing March, but in my mind, I thought I was going to put it on the market in March, because I tried to actually argue with God. I tried to say, can I stay until Christmas so I can have Christmas, because I'm all about Christmas, so I can have Christmas with my family. And so I just kept hearing March. So I thought, in the meantime, I'm going to let my realtor know, to put it on her radar, that in March I was going to sell the home. And I shared with her that I had made some upgrades to the home. So she asked for some pictures. I sent her photos, and I said, I'll call you in March, or you call me in March, whatever. About November, I was still working at the deli, waiting for these other 2 jobs to, well, I had to cancel the job as an interpreter at home, and at home interpreter, because I knew I was going to be doing this. So I was just working the deli until the other job was going to start, which I ended up having to cancel as well. But so I'm working at the deli, and we had regulars that came in there, which I absolutely loved. And I was talking to one couple one day. They were so excited because their grandson had just proposed to his girlfriend, and they were going to be married September 21. This is about September 22. This was November of 21. And as we were talking, they said they're looking to buy a house so that they'll have a house and be able to move into it after they get married. And I said, oh, that's so lovely. And they said, well, they're looking for a house on Findlay, which is where everybody wants to live in that town that I lived in. Findlay was a very sought after street, because it's a very social street. The neighbors have parties all the time together, and it's just such a social street, and everybody's so kind, and there's so much love there. So everybody wanted to live on Findlay. And so when she said that, I looked at her, and she could probably see a strange look on my face, because she goes, what is it? What's the matter? And I said, well, my house is on Findlay, and I'm going to be selling it in March. And she said, oh. So she said, let me call the kids. We'll be in touch. I gave her my phone number. I then called my realtor to let her know these people might be wanting to buy the house. So fast forward, the house didn't work out for them, but because of the buzz of me putting the house on the market, someone else who always wanted to live on that street decided she was going to buy the house. So I didn't even have to list the house. And I didn't list the house in March. We closed in March. So that's what the March was about. Sometimes when I hear things, I don't hear all the details, but so I closed in March. So it was a busy time. All that packing and stuff after Christmas and getting it all ready. My daughter found a place. We got her into her place. And I was going to stay about a week with her before I actually took off. And so I'm in my house for the last night or two. And I'm going to miss the house. I'm kind of sad. And I take that back. I was probably a couple of weeks before. It was a couple of weeks before I was actually leaving. My daughter was in her apartment. And I was feeling kind of sad. But I was also kind of curious. I didn't understand exactly what I was going to be doing, or how, not what I was going to be doing, but how I was going to know how to get there or know where to go. I knew I was going to go to California first, but I knew there were certain places I had to be at certain times, but I didn't know how this was going to unfold. And so I was in prayer, and so I decided to go to a major grocery store, national chain, and as I'm there shopping for things for my travels, I hear an eruption of people screaming at each other, 2 people screaming at each other. And I tend to run the other way because I hate confrontation. But I knew that I had to go and at least see that everybody was safe. And so I went towards the confrontation. And it was an employee who did like the shopping for you as you picked it up in your car, because they had one of those carts. And it was a customer holding a baby. And they were just screaming at each other. And it was pretty intense. And I went to turn to look to see if anyone else was coming to the rescue. And I saw another store employee running towards that direction. And she said, "What is going on?" And I said, "Your employee is fighting with this customer. I don't know what it's about. I just happened onto it." And she goes, "Oh, I bet it's so-and-so." So I don't know if they had a problem with him in the past. But anyway, so now I knew that everything was taken care of. I turned around and finished up what I was shopping for. But as I'm walking the store, I keep hearing, "Go tell her that I love her." And I argued. I said, "I am not going to find a stranger and tell her you love her. I need you to go find her. I want you to go give her a hug." And I was just like, I don't want to do this. This feels so awkward to me. And excuse me for getting emotional. And I heard distinctively, "Go." So I went to find her, and she's still rattled. You can just see, either the adrenaline's crashing, the lack of adrenaline's crashing, making her crash, or she's still fired up. I couldn't tell, but she was still a little angry and still holding the baby. And there were two other people with her. I'm not quite sure who they were to her, but they were with her, and they were just very quiet, younger people. And so I went up to her, and I said, "God sent me to give you a hug." And she just looked at me and she said, "I really need one right now." And I wrapped my arms around her and the baby. And the baby took a hold of my thumb. She had a hold of my thumb. And I just held her. And I could feel God's presence there. I could feel His love enveloping both of us in that moment. And it was one of the most beautiful moments I'd ever shared with another human being. And a stranger, no doubt. But anyway, and as we parted our embrace with our arms still around each other, I said, "God loves you." And she said, "I don't usually let people take my peace like that." And I said, "And God heard you, and He wanted to give it back to you. So here, I brought you His love. And it's okay, just let it all go." And she was calm after that point. She was just calm, and I felt peace for her and for myself. And that little baby had a hold of my thumb, and she goes, "Lady, I need you to know something. My baby doesn't like people." And I was just so honored and flattered that the baby was holding onto my hand. But as I walked away, I turned around and I couldn't look back because I was so overwhelmed with gratitude and joy, because He was showing me exactly how things were going to happen, that He would take me to the person that needed Him in that moment, and I didn't need to worry about it, and that I shouldn't argue. But I couldn't not cry as I walked around the store. But I don't think anyone noticed, and if they did, they probably saw the grin from ear to ear on my face, because they were the best tears I had shed in a long time, knowing how much God was going to move me towards the people that needed Him. And that sounds kind of small, but I know that this was His way of teaching me, because I was in prayer so much about not understanding how it was all going to work. This was His way of teaching me, you don't need to worry about it. I got this. So real quick, I want to add one more little bit to this. When I was a child, about 13 or 14, I think, there was a movie out called Oh God. And I know that movies that come out of Hollywood are for the sole purpose of making money. But I also believe in my heart of hearts that the Bible is not the only place we learn lessons. But the movie Oh God, which starred George Burns and John Denver, had a huge impact on me at that age. And there were several reasons, but one of them was the fact that in the movie, because Jerry, who was John Denver, God came to him. That's what the story's about. God comes to him in this George Burns form and says, I need you to remind people that I'm here. And he said, I'm not a religious person. And he said, I got plenty of those. And that doesn't matter to me. And I remember thinking as a kid, watching the movie, it probably doesn't matter. He probably talks to all of us. And so that always made me really want that open dialogue with God, to know what he had to tell me. But anyway, that was, when I was 14. And so the last night that I was going to be in my home, before I was going to stay with my daughter for a week, I kept hearing, watch that movie. And I thought, well, that's a strange request, but okay. Because I was excited about going. But I also still a little bit like, this is going to be interesting how it's going to pan out. I trust you completely. But I kept hearing, watch the movie. So I get on to Amazon and I rented the movie. I think I paid $1.99 or 99 cents or $2.99 something. I paid something to rent the movie. And as I'm watching, I of course get real emotional, because then I realized that where God had told Jerry to go out, or John Denver, to go out and tell people he was here, he was telling him to do it through the media and through religious leaders of the day in the movie. But it was very similar to what he was telling me to do. And at the time, I thought, well, mine's a little bit different. He's sending me out there. But now that I'm supposed to be posting on social media and making this podcast, it's similar. So as I watched the movie, I got very emotional and thanked him for pointing out that even though it's a silly movie, there were some important things in that movie that meant a lot to me, and how he has led me in my life and how he has taught me to be who I am. And I just cried as I watched the movie. And it's a little bit silly, but there is a good story to it. I don't know who wrote it, but I think that there might be a message there for everyone. But anyway, so I went to bed feeling so peaceful and excited about what was going to be my life for the next, I didn't know how long. And in the morning, as I checked my email, Amazon sent me an email saying, oh, that streamed so poorly for you. We're going to refund you your money. It streamed just fine. I just think that was God's way of saying, yeah, it was me that wanted you to watch that movie. So anyway, so now I'm getting ready to take off. And so the next episode is going to be just about that, about what it was like to pack up and leave everything I knew in my life and start an adventure in my car. So I'm going to wrap this one up again a little bit longer than I want these to be, but I try to condense them, but I'm a talker. Anyway, so I just want to remind you that if you have a testimony, or if you want to share how God has moved in your life, I would love to hear from you. And for those of you who have emailed me, I will get back to you. I promise. I'm working full time and trying to do this at the same time. So just trying to squeeze everything in, 24-hour day. So I apologize for not getting back to you, but I will. I promise. And so if anyone else out there has a testimony, I just want to talk to you. If you're not comfortable doing the video, we can just do the podcast. We can just record your voice. So if you don't want your face on a video, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I will just have to ask my deaf. The reason why I'm doing the videos is I have deaf friends and family who would like to follow along, but there are transcripts that you can read. I just would like to make it easier for the deaf community. Anyway, so I hope that if you do have a testimony or do you want to share how God has moved in your life, that you will give me an email. And it's Tammy Blake, Tami, one M and an I, Blake, Blake, at tammyblake.com. And I will email you as quick as I can, and we'll get something set up where we can chat on the phone, and then we can have a little talk either on just the podcast, or we can do both a video and a podcast, because people need to hear your story. So I will talk to you next week, and know that I love you all, and have a great week.